Hello everyone, you have come to Tata Comic Preview channel. Let read together. Have fun. Upon hearing these words, a few people standing next to Yu Shangren laughed. Brother, you probably don't know the difference between 9 leaves and 10 leaves. How can 10 leaves lose to 9 leaves? If that person really has 10 leaves and loses, I'll walk backward. Nonsense. There's no meaning to that. Let's make things clear. If the Red Lotus cultivator has 10 leaves, then all the bets are off. That won't do. No one knows the exact strength of both opponents beforehand. What if the expert from the Evil Sky Pavilion has 10 leaves as well? This bet is really exciting. Everyone nodded. Yu Shangrong did not reply to them. He only silently watched the battle. In his opinion, Zhang Wanxiang definitely had hidden strength. However, since he had just sprouted his 10th leaf, it was likely that he was still unfamiliar and unskilled with his newfound strength. Yu Zhenghai had sparred with an old-timer like Nie Qingyun for such a long time now, how could he lose so easily? However, sparring was sparring, and a fight was a fight. On the battlefield, it was as difficult as ascending to heaven for a 9-leaf cultivator to defeat a 10-leaf cultivator. Zhang Wanxiang's expression remained solemn as his energy sabers in the surroundings grew sharper. Naturally, Yu Zhenghai had noticed this. The two opponents continued to clash with their energy sabers, causing the buildings within a radius of 100 kilometers to collapse with a bang. The energy sabers had been slashing around in the air for so long now, so it was not surprising that the buildings finally collapsed. With this, their fields of vision grew wider as well. Zhang Wanxiang thought about how to neutralize Yu Zhenghai's energy sabers for a moment before he said, "The next move of mine is called drawing the blade and splitting the water. I hope it'll satisfy Mr. First." Subsequently, Zhang Wanxiang clenched his hands before unclenching them again. The primal qi in the surroundings were turned into energy before countless energy sabers formed a ring in the sky above Zhang Wanxiang. From a distance, it looked like a vortex. Yu Zhenghai placed one hand on his back and shook his head before he stepped forward. It's not good enough. Yu Zhenghai arrived in front of Zhang Wanxiang and formed an energy saber in his hand before he brought it down, not giving Zhang Wanxiang the chance to complete the gathering of energy sabers. Whoosh! Zhang Wanxiang manipulated the energy sabers and a few energy sabers shot up to meet Yu Zhenghai. 10 energy sabers deflected Yu Zhenghai's energy sabers while the remaining energy sabers shot toward him. Yu Zhenghai flew back. He thought the saber technique was somewhat interesting. The energy sabers did not relent and continued to pursue Yu Zhenghai. At the same time, more and more energy sabers began to appear. At this moment, Yu Zhenghai suddenly dove. He raised his hand, using the great dark heaven palm as a shield against the energy sabers. Bam! 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 Surprisingly, Zhang Wanxiang seemed to possess endless primal qi. His energy sabers continued to shoot out one after another. At this moment, someone said, "The victor is about to be decided." To have endless primal qi, the Red Lotus cultivator isn't simple. Yu Shangrong glanced at the two cultivators who had spoken and shook his head before he said indifferently, "It's too early to claim victory for him. That person from the Evil Sky Pavilion has yet to use the weapon at his waist." Everyone looked over. Indeed, the Golden Lotus cultivator had yet to use his weapon. At this moment, when the great dark heaven palm shattered, the Jasper saber flew into Yu Zhenghai's hand. Buzz! In just a moment, an energy saber that was dozens of feet long spun and rose into the air, deflecting the endless energy sabers. Buzz! Zhang Wanxiang suddenly moved forward and manifested his avatar. The buzzing sound from the energy resonance was thunderously loud. Boom! The Red Lotus 10-leaf avatar blocked Yu Zhenghai's energy saber after arriving in front of Yu Zhenghai. Zhang Wanxiang joined his palms together, holding the biggest energy saber before bringing it down on Yu Zhenghai. Yu Zhenghai blocked with his other hand. Buzz! A golden 9-leaf avatar appeared in the air. The two opponents were stuck in a stalemate. The 200-foot avatar collided with the 150-foot avatar. Zhang Wanxiang's countless energy sabers limited the Jasper saber's range of movement while he tried to restrain Zhenghai with the energy saber in his hand. With this, Zhang Wanxiang gained the upper hand. He asked with a smile, "Mr. First, are you surprised? Do I look surprised?" Zhenghai calmly replied with an equally calm expression on his face. Indeed, he did not look surprised at all. Zhang Wanxiang's smile disappeared, and he increased the power of the energy blade in his hand. The energy blade shone with a dazzlingly red light that looked like blood under the sun. Zhenghai was pushed back, his feet drawing two shallow trenches on the ground. Upon seeing this, everyone cried out in surprise. The energy sabers showed no sign of stopping and continued to fall. Everyone wondered how Zhang Wanxiang could keep this up. Drawing the blade and splitting the water used endless energy sabers to limit the opponent's movements, leaving the opponent with very little chance to attack and interrupting the rhythm of the opponent's attack. Zhou nodded, slightly impressed. To be able to force Zhenghai back, Zhang Wanxiang is indeed slightly capable. If his energy sabers are purer, perhaps, his strength might be comparable to Zhenghai. After uttering those words, Zhou realized there was something wrong with them. He should be more worried about his disciple. Meanwhile, Zhenghai retreated nearly 100 meters away. The rubble behind him was all knocked away by his protective energy. The two opponents seemed to have a tacit understanding and did not leave the ruins to limit the damage from the battle. Back then, the battle of Zhenghai and Shangrong, who were still 8-leaf cultivators, was enough to destroy the forest within 15 kilometers on Cloudshine Peak. It was not out of the ordinary for a battle between a 9-leaf cultivator and a 10-leaf cultivator to destroy a city. For this reason, the two opponents were attacking each other in a frenzy only in the ruins. Meanwhile, when Zhang Wanxiang's strength was exhausted, Zhenghai stomped on the ground and stabilized his body. Following that, the great dark heaven palm shot out fiercely. Bang! Zhang Wanxiang was sent flying back with an expression of disbelief on his face. A 10-leaf cultivator was sent flying by a 9-leaf cultivator? Who would believe this? The onlookers exclaimed in unison upon seeing this. Meanwhile, Zhang Wanxiang flipped once in the air and regained his footing. He pushed his hand out, once again releasing energy sabers. Following that, he leaped up and slashed out with the energy saber in his hand. Zhenghai smiled faintly. Water Dragon Song. When Zhenghai withdrew the Jasper saber, his energy sabers converged into a water dragon. The golden water dragon shot toward the energy sabers in the sky. Bam! 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 Zhenghai sent Zhang Wanxiang flying back again with the water dragon song. At the same time, the desolate grey jasper saber shot out as well, pushing Zhang Wanxiang further back. When Zhang Wanxiang's energy sabers broke, he manifested his avatar immediately. This move was similar to when Zhu Tianyun fought the 7 alliances. He used the 10-leaf avatar to block Zhenghai's water dragon song. Everyone shook their heads when they saw this scene. How's this possible? A 10-leaf cultivator is beaten by a 9-leaf cultivator? Fortunately, he has one more leaf. If they have the same number of leaves, wouldn't the red lotus cultivator lose without a doubt? It's a desolate grade saber. Everyone looked up. Zhenghai unleashed his grand technique and flashed up into the air. He wielded the jasper saber with both hands and brought them down. How could Zhang Wanxiang dare to use his avatar to block an attack from a desolate grade saber? After he deflected the water song dragon, he hurriedly withdrew his avatar. Boom! Zhenghai's saber seemed capable of destroying mountains and rivers. An energy saber that was thousands of meters long left a long and narrow mark on the ground that almost spanned the entire length of the ruins. It was an amazing and terrifying sight. At this moment, the two opponents faced each other from a distance. Zhang Wanxiang no longer dared to look down on his opponent. He said, "Mr. First truly lives up to his reputation. I admit that I underestimated my opponent." As Zhenghai tightened his grip on the jasper saber, he said nonchalantly, "It's just the beginning." Rumble. A clap of thunder rang in the air at this moment before the rain began pouring down, adding a touch of mystery to the ruins. Needless to say, the rain could not touch the cultivators at all. The raindrops were quickly evaporated by their protective energies. Since they were not in a battle, maintaining the protective energies to keep the rain at bay consumed very little energy. However, for Yu Zhenghai and Zhang Wanxiang who were engaged in a battle, it was slightly more taxing. Perhaps, if they were ordinary cultivators, this tiny pressure could have been the straw that broke the camel's back. Fortunately, the battle was far from being over, and they still had the energy to spare. Hence, it was easy for them to keep the rain at bay. At this moment, Zhang Wanxiang replied, "Then let's continue." Zhang Wanxiang manifested his Red Lotus 200-foot avatar. As the avatar flew horizontally in the air, he shot to the head of the avatar and rushed to attack Yu Zhenghai. Using the difference between the cultivation base to suppress the opponent, Yu Zhenghai and Nie Qingyun had sparred with each other many times, and Nie Qingyun would often use this technique to turn the table. He knew his 9-leaf avatar would not be a match for Zhang Wanxiang's avatar in a direct battle. Therefore, he could only rely on his desolate grey jasper saber. He would use his saber, skills, and experience to level the playing field between him and the 10-leaf avatar. Everyone applauded. Amazing. They should have done this earlier. The Red Lotus avatar continued to fly as Yu Zhenghai held the jasper saber with both hands. Primal Qi surged out his Dantian sea of Qi into the surroundings. A loud roar rang in the air. The golden water dragon had appeared again. Unlike before, it was several times stronger. Boom. Water. Zhang Wanxiang's avatar collided with the water dragon. When Lu Zhou used this move back then, he had used the water of the pond near the cloud platform to demonstrate the might of water dragon song. He did not expect the rain would give Yu Zhenghai an advantage. The water droplets in the surroundings gathered on the water dragon roar that kept trying to devour Zhang Wanxiang's avatar. At this moment, Zhang Wanxiang's eyes widened as he cried out, "It's coming." Zhang Wanxiang hastily withdrew his avatar and dove forward relying on inertia. After he brushed past the underside of the water dragon, he manifested his avatar again. The water dragon pressed down. Boom. The water dragon landed on the back of the red avatar. In the next moment, Zhang Wanxiang grunted as blood trickled out from the corners of his lips. However, he did not stop and directly brought the energy saber in his hand down. Someone exclaimed, "He injured himself to injure the enemy." As the energy saber pressed down heavily, Yu Zhenghai had no choice but to use the remaining primal qi to unleash the great dark heaven palm. Bang. The instant the energy blades disappeared, one could see the buildings in the surroundings that had been flattened. Yu Zhenghai staggered backward. He grunted and blood trickled out of the corners of his lips as well. He failed to gain the upper hand in this move. Thunder rang from the sky as the rain continued to fall. The sound of the water hitting the ground was like the sound of thousands of soldiers and horses galloping on the battlefield. Zhang Wanxiang smiled and said, "Mr. First, you're injured. You don't have any intention of joining the evil sky pavilion, am I right?" Yu Zhenghai said. "Mr. First, you're overthinking things. I just want to prove my strength." Zhang Wanxiang stepped into the air, evaporating the rain that fell on him. Buzz. Zhang Wanxiang manifested his avatar again. Yu Zhenghai's expression turned solemn. He stabbed the jasper saber into the ground before he joined his palms together. Seeing this scene, Lu Zhou shook his head and looked at Zhang Wanxiang who was flying away. He said indifferently, "Young people are still too inexperienced." This sentence was Lu Zhou's evaluation of Zhang Wanxiang. He had long seen that Zhang Wanxiang had just sprouted the 10th leaf. Zhang Wanxiang was clearly unfamiliar with his newfound strength and would use the same move twice. To paralyze his opponent, Zhang Wanxiang would make slight changes to the technique the second time he used it. In this regard, Zhang Wanxiang could not compare to Yu Zhenghai who lived life on the edge of the saber. Yu Zhenghai abandoned the saber and mobilized his primal qi. With a single move, he soared to the height of 100 meters. Sovereign descent. The dark heaven starlight. Zhenghai cast 2 techniques at the same time. At this moment, the rain from the sky seemed to have turned into energy sabers. The sword of creation? Zhenghai frowned slightly. This was a theory from the sword path. The people next to Zhenghai who had heard his words and asked curiously, the sword of creation? Zhenghai calmly explained, it's a theory from the sword path. The sword path? There are 3 kinds of swords, the commoner's sword, the Lord's sword, and the Son of Heaven's sword. However, above all these 3 swords, there's the sword of creations. Otherwise known as the swordless path, Zhenghai patiently explained, what that person is doing is similar to the sword of creations even if he executed it rather awkwardly. Everyone seemed enlightened upon hearing Zhenghai's words and nodded in admiration. Someone said, that's considered an awkward execution? In any case, his energy sabers enable him to stand against a 10-leaf cultivator despite only having 9 leaves. We're not talking about the energy sabers. I'm talking about the theory from the sword path. You're right. At this moment, the energy sabers continued to fall heavily like torrential rain. Zhang Wanxiang's 200-foot red lotus avatar spun horizontally in position, stirring up the debris and rubble in the surroundings. Soon enough, a circle of energy with a diameter of 200 feet suddenly shot out. Bam! 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 The collision was thunderous and violent like a raging storm. Zhang Wanxiang raised his chin and smiled. It was within his expectation that his opponent would change his move. 9 leaves are ultimately not a match for 10 leaves. Zhang Wanxiang leaped up as a saber appeared in his hand. Between his fingers, the scripts "The path has no name" appeared, they were surrounded by black runes. Upon seeing this, Zhou frowned slightly. Black runes? If it was just a 10-leaf cultivator, Zhou would not worry about his disciple at all. However, with the appearance of the black runes, things had gotten complicated. Zhou looked in the direction of Zhenghai who was standing among the cultivators and saw the calm expression on Zhenghai's face. It was clear Zhenghai had no intention of making a move at all. He wondered if he was worried for nothing again. If Zhenghai claimed to know Zhenghai second best in the world, no one would dare to claim the first place. Since Zhenghai was calm, why was he getting worried for nothing? Back in the sky. When Zhenghai saw Zhang Wanxiang making this move, he said in a deep voice, I've been waiting for you. Following that, Zhenghai pressed both his hands down. In just an instant, energy blades surged up from all directions. Zhang Wanxiang was not intimidated at all. He looked at the saber in his hands, clearly very confident about the black runes. He aimed for Zhenghai's heart as he said, You're dead. Bang. 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 The saber in Zhang Wanxiang's hand parted the sea of energy sabers in the sky as the red lotus avatar followed in its wake. When he was about to arrive before Zhenghai, suddenly parted his palms. Buzz. Whoosh. The jasper saber stuck in the mud buzzed before it flew up majestically into the air. In just a moment, an energy saber that was thousands of meters long appeared and slashed at the back of the red lotus avatar. It landed accurately on the shoulder of the 200-foot red lotus avatar. Its strength did not decrease as it continued to slice down until exited from the avatar's chest. Just like that, 1/3 of the avatar was sliced by the thousands of meters long energy saber that was formed by the jasper saber. It looked as though someone had torn a hole in the sky. Zhang Wanxiang cried out in pain. The black runes and the saber in his hand were still a few meters away from his opponent, and his avatar had been damaged, severely injuring his Dantian Sea of Qi. At this moment, Zhenghai used the Great Dark Heaven Palm again. The palm seal landed accurately on Zhang Wanxiang's chest. Boom. Zhang Wanxiang fell from the sky and crashed into the rubble of the collapsed buildings. The ruins that were littered with dilapidated buildings were now like flatland. Zhenghai looked down at Zhang Wanxiang who was lying in a puddle of water. He was rather satisfied with the result of the battle. Everyone was stunned by the outcome. The expert from the Evil Sky Pavilion is actually so strong? First, he discarded his desolate grade weapon and threw crazily powerful attacks at this opponent. Then, when the Red Lotus avatar was about to attack, he used his desolate grade weapon to launch a sneak attack from the back. Wonderful. It's truly wonderful. Yu Shangrong looked at everyone and said, "This is just a superficial feint. These moves are only flashy, but they're very powerful. Moreover, the opponent's lack of combat experience is a huge flaw. In conclusion, it's not that the 9-leaf cultivator is strong, it's just that the 10-leaf cultivator is too weak. Brother, you talk as if you're very strong. If you're capable, why don't you go out there?" Yu Shangrong smiled gently and said in a polite tone, "It's unfortunate that he has been defeated. If I were to make a move, he would have lost even more miserably." Everyone was rendered speechless by Yu Shangrong's words. This person was really great at acting cool. They did not want to pay attention to him anymore. Meanwhile, Zhou, who was observing from the distance, nodded in satisfaction. He recalled that when he was in the Evil Sky Pavilion, his 2 eldest disciples were already at the peak of the 8-leaf stage. Although Ji Tiandao did not protect his 2 disciples, they were still able to dominate the cultivation world and rivaled each other. Now that he thought about it, he had never really witnessed them defeating a powerhouse. After witnessing the battle today, he was very gratified. The thunder had stopped ringing, but the rain was still falling. Nevertheless, Zhou's hearing, even without the heavenly writing power, was extraordinary. He could easily hear everything in the distance. As he looked in the distance, time seemed to slow down as his eyes pierced through the rain that was falling incredibly slowly. Zhou's heart stirred slightly. It seemed like he had become stronger. Was this a passive ability that came with activation of the 4th birth chart? Back in the ruins, Zhenghai slowly descended. However, he came to a stop next to Zhang Wanxiang before his feet touched the ground. Then, he raised his hand and the jasper saber flew back into his hand. As his protective energy evaporated the rain before they could fall on him, Zhenghai said, "7th junior brother told me that the genius from the Zhang family was missing and that there was a possibility he might seek revenge. You only changed your name but openly used your surname, how can I not be on guard?" "Zhang Shiming, what's the point?" The onlookers broke out in an uproar upon hearing these words. Zhang Shiming of the Zhang family? I heard that Zhang Yuan'er committed suicide in the palace because he was afraid of being punished. After that, Zhang Shiming's whereabouts was unknown. As it turns out, he broke through to the 10-leaf stage? No wonder. I felt something was amiss earlier. In the beginning, it looked like a friendly spar, but as time went on, it seemed like he was out for blood. Zhang Yuan'er deserves it. It seems like the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Zhang Yuan'er's crimes have long been posted all over the capital. There's no one who's unaware of what he had done. However, this Zhang Shiming still has the audacity to seek revenge? If he's so capable, why didn't he seek revenge from that mighty Thousand Realms whirling expert? He deserves to be spat on for picking on a 9-leaf cultivator. Words could assassinate. See, Wuya's strategy was incredibly effective. There was no one who did not know that the loyal and valiant Zhang Yuan'er was actually a corrupt and treacherous official. He was a traitor that everyone despised. Just the saliva of the common people was enough to drown the Zhang family. Yu Shangrong smiled faintly before he said, "I'm afraid the matter isn't so simple." "Brother, don't you think you're overthinking things?" Yu Shangrong continued to say, "That's not true. Forget about Zhang Shiming being a new 10-leaf cultivator. Did you see the black runes around his hand earlier? It's proof that the Zhang family was colluding with the Black Lotus domain." The people nearby were about to refute his words when Yu Zhenghai raised his head and looked at Yu Shangrong before he asked, "Second junior brother, what do you think about my victory?" Yu Zhenghai's voice was loud and clear, so even the onlookers who were standing 1,000 meters away, just outside of the ruins, heard his words. The onlookers were surprised that he had discovered their presence so quickly. In any case, that was not important. What was important was who was his second junior brother. Yu Shangrong replied, "It's barely passable." Everyone. Yu Zhenghai argued, "I used the sovereign descent and saber of creation to attack Zhang Shiming. He thought that was my main attack, but he did not know the Jasper Saber was my killing move. How's that barely passable? Yu Shangrong said, it's true that the sovereign descent has extraordinary effects. However, what do you mean by Saber of Creation? It's called the Sword of Creation. Technically, you used a sword skill. Perhaps, that was why the effect was rather lacking when you tried to turn all creation into sabers. If it were me, I'd easily use the Sword of Creation and turn the rain in my swords to kill Zhang Ximing without needing to launch a sneak attack. This Yu Zhenghai's mouth opened and closed for a moment before he said. What you said is just a hypothesis. I admit it was a little difficult to use all creation as sabers. However, it's not possible for you to defeat him with energy swords alone with launching a sneak attack. Everyone. Yu Shangrong calmly refuted Yu Zhenghai's words, eldest senior brother, have you forgotten that my sword has been repaired? Whoosh. The longevity sword flew out of its sheath. Not only was it repaired, but it had also advanced to the flood grade. As it spun in the air, 80,000 energy swords filled the sky. Together with the rain, they formed a huge sword that covered the entire sky. It spun in the air above everyone. Swoosh. 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 After a moment, the energy swords seemed to disappear into the longevity sword. Following that, the longevity sword flew back into its sheath. The longevity sword's speed was so fast that the cultivators present could barely catch a glimpse of its shadow. Everyone. The two cultivators who thought that Yu Shangrong was bragging and acting cool were dumbstruck. Yu Zhenghai said, the difference between the two weapons can't be considered as a difference. Eldest senior brother has a point. Just like that, the two disciples reached an agreement. At this moment, Zhang Ximing grunted and coughed out muddy water. His expression was one of disbelief as he looked at Yu Zhenghai hovering above him. He could not resign himself to this outcome. How could a 10-leaf cultivator lose to a 9-leaf cultivator? This was a great humiliation everywhere in the cultivation world. His eyes shone with undisguised hatred as he endured the pain and asked, you already knew everything right from the start? Yu Zhenghai replied nonchalantly, you know too little about the evil sky pavilion. I have a junior brother who's extremely intelligent. As you can imagine, he makes for an excellent strategist. He had rounded up all the members of the Zhang family after His Majesty ordered the Zhang family to be executed. It was not difficult to notice your absence. There are very few people who dare to challenge me in this world. You sure have guts. My Zhang family was wronged. Yu Zhenghai asked, tell me, did the Black Lotus domain contact you? Zhang Ximing laughed maniacally. There was a hint of sorrow in his laughter. You want to know? Unfortunately, I'm not going to tell you anything. Do you think I won't be able to find out if you don't tell me? Zhang Ximing said in between his coughs, so what if you find out? I knew I couldn't defeat 1,000 realms whirling expert, so I decided to kill a 9-leaf cultivator first. All of a sudden, he spat out a mouthful of blood. His eyes were bloodshot, and the blood on his chest was mixed with mud. When he recovered, he continued to say, they will definitely come. They? Yu Zhenghai tilted his head slightly.